What's going on, guys? It's Denzel, aka Images by Zell, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do camera motion in Davinci Resolve 18. Alright, so here we are in Davinci Resolve 18. This clip is from a social media video I shot for Trey Gadd. He's an artist I collaborate with a lot on his channel. He just wanted something simple, like a simple video for social media for a new song he just released. But I didn't do any camera motion. I just had the shot locked down on sticks, because we knew that in post we were going to want to like play with it. So I just decided it'd be easier to just not mess with it. This timeline is, let's see, the timeline isn't a legit 9x16. I was doing a more 4x3 letterbox situation, so the box size is a little funky because I was doing some different things with the resolution, but I shot this vertically. It's essentially a vertical timeline. I want to get into all that. What you would do, so there's a couple different ways to do this. I guess the traditional way would be to use keyframes to do your motion, which all you're doing basically, let me close that out in that there. Really all you're doing is doing it in your transform panel under the inspector. So you know, you got your stuff over here, so you can just come over, click on inspector, go to transform, and this is where you can zoom and reposition things. This is also how you could do punch-ins. So let me just show you for an example what I mean. You could start here. So you wanted to just punch in, and you wanted to punch in for a close-up. You wanted it, this is like a way you can kind of cheat as if you have two cameras, even though it's not really two cameras, it's only the one. But you can like, oh yeah, here we go, I'm playing it like this. It's more of a wide. Let me reduce this so I can play back at a decent. Oh, it's messing up. I'm gonna take my effects and stuff off. You don't need to see that right now. So we're just gonna play skip ahead here, and then bam, punch in. So that's not technically a camera motion, but that's how you could do a punch in fairly easily. But that's not what we're trying to do. So I'm gonna just undo all that stuff. So really quickly, something I like to do is when I do camera motion, you can just do it on the clip, but a little trick I like to do is if I know I'm going to be redoing stuff a lot. So what you would do is just come over to effects, make sure you have that click and that it's highlighted, toolbox titles, you go down to effects, and I have it starred. So I think it does pop up here even if it's not starred, because I have my favorites over here and I use it a lot, so you can grab it from either spot if you have it saved to your favorites. But I like to do the programming of the camera movement in an adjustment clip, because I can always easily grab that adjustment clip and drop it anywhere on the video clip without having to punch in those keyframes again every time, because that would get annoying. This is not something you have to do. You can skip this step and you can do it directly on the video clip, but I like to do it. Each case might be different. Adjustment clips can do some weird things with your resizing and stuff like that, so just make sure you're paying attention to that. So like I said, this is a case-by-case basis. You have to know that this would work for you. If all else fails, just do what I'm showing you directly on the clip, because you won't have any problems. You just have to manually punch in those keyframe commands every time. But anyway, I like to do that on a adjustment clip. So let's just say I want to start here. One thing you can do is just kind of like, let's say from here to here, so I want the motion to happen. What I can do is set the motion to do what I want it to do. I can go to the end of the adjustment clip. I'll mark it. So you want to hit the diamonds here, and that's how you start the animation of your keyframes. And then I'll come back to the beginning. And then what I'm going to do, a little quick way of doing this, you don't have to drag everything back to the beginning. If you double click on this, pretty much works for most things in the inspector panel, but if you double click on the words, like on zoom, it'll put it back to where it was originally. You see, it went back to 100, and then on your position, double click, it goes back. But when you did that, it set the keyframe animation start point. So that's a easier way of doing it. I just like to start at the end. Like, I know what I want the animation to do, so I set it so I can see everything I'm doing. I set that at the end with the keyframe, go back to the beginning, hit reset. Like that. Don't hit reset over here, because if I hit reset here, now everything went away. Now I lost everything I just did. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do that again. I'm just gonna, I know where I want my endpoint to be. So it just kind of makes it easy. So I'm just gonna do that. Maybe I want him to be centered up here. Just pop up your little your guide frames and things like that. Put that away. So I'm like, okay, this is where I want it to end at. So I'm gonna go to the end of the clip, make sure it's highlighted. You see that it popped up because, as you can see underneath, this is my adjustment clip. So that's the adjustment affected just that one area. And this is why I like to use adjustment clips, because you can set it to where you want the effect to happen. That's even another way to do punch-ins. And that's actually how I do punch-ins quite often. So I can literally just copy this throughout. Let's say I wanted that to happen a lot of times. All I have to do is move it, boom, and then get it there, and then boom. And I'm not having to reprogram it every time, because otherwise I'd have to do that in each section of that clip, and that would just get annoying. So I have the end point set. So like I said, I'm going to go to where I want the endpoint to finish at. I'm going to click on the diamonds next to zoom and next to position. Now the endpoint is set. Go back to the beginning. I'm going to double click on zoom. That set the animation start point for the keyframe. And I'm going to hit double click on position. And that just did the animation start point for the position. So now when I hit play, you see the camera motion is happening. And that is one way of doing it. You can do it that way. Another way you can do it, so let me just slide out the way right now. We'll just start, I'm gonna just cut the clip so I don't have to worry about where it comes in at and things like that. Another way to do it, if you're just doing something like that, like a basic push in, you can totally do it that way. That's like the traditional way of doing it. But I like to do it with dynamic zoom, which is a cool tool that's built into Davinci Resolve. And it's like perfect for these types of situations. So what you would do is in your inspector panel, it's underneath of transform and cropping. You would come over here to the little switch for dynamic zoom, click it on. When you do that, it automatically does a zoom motion by default. It has a default motion that it does, but it does it over the entire clip. So if you wanted it to only do it in one section, like I did with the adjustment clip, you could actually do your dynamic zoom on your adjustment clip too. So that's little things I like. That's why I like to use the adjustment clips in that way, because it's easier to set where you want the stop point to be. So you can, it is doing this animation. It's just very slow because it basically is spread out over the entire clip. You can come over here at the bottom of your viewer here, and you'll see this box. This is like highlights, that's the transform. But if you hit the drop down arrow, you'll see all the different options you have. Come to dynamic zoom, and you can see what I'm gonna do is swap, because the green is like the start point, red is like the end point. So what it's doing right now is zooming out, which is cool, but I wanna do a zoom in. So back over here under the inspector panel, dynamic zoom, you hit swap. Once you hit swap, now you can watch it's easier to, I zoomed in so you can see that. You can see it pushing in, it's very slow, but let's say I wanted to go faster than that, I could push in more dramatically, and then we'll zoom back out. Wait a minute, what am I doing? So you can see that it's sped up some. It's still such a large area for it to cover that it's going to take it a long time to get there. Now, if you wanted to just steadily zoom in the whole time, it could do that, and you can set it, and it's like it's going to do the entire clip. It's going to go and go and go and go and zoom in on what it is you want it to hit, which is totally cool if that's what you want, but you don't really have a whole lot of control there. So what you would have to do would be to do a edit point on your clip like that, and all of what I just did is still programmed. So it's going to do that same as that motion I set, but it's going to do it a lot faster because it has a less time to travel. So you can see it's doing the same thing I had before, but now it's moving way faster. And then this might not matter, because if you're doing like a project that has multiple cuts, let's say you're going to put this here. Now you covered it up, so it doesn't matter if you see it or not. but see how fast that went. So that is an option. And if you don't want it to do all that, you can obviously reframe how this works. I can slow it down. So basically, it's like the less distance it has to travel, you can kind of see like I'm pushing it. I wanted to zoom in that much, or I don't want it to zoom in that much. So I'm bringing I'm bringing my end point closer to my start point. So, just kind of how you can view it. So it's not too complicated. And now it's going to push in slow, but it's like it's doing it because it doesn't have as much time to travel. You can do that way. Let's just say I just don't want, I can just go ahead and I can reset all that. And then take the dynamic zoom off. And then I'm going to turn that off and turn that off there. Because like I said, when you pull that dynamic zoom in, it automatically does its animation. So let's just say I'm going to keep that one and grab another adjustment clip. I'm going to change the color on this so that way we don't get confused as to which adjustment clip is which. And then we'll just make this one a different color too for the fun of it. We'll just make it pink. Alright, so now this one, let's say I want to do the same thing, but I'm going to do the dynamic zoom on the adjustment clip instead of the video. Again, you don't have to do this. It really depends on your situation and what you're doing, but it might help you out. Seriously depends on what you're doing. It's just an idea. Because basically I can grab this and copy it throughout the clip. If I wanted the same type of motion for the same amount of, because I can control the timing by how long the clip is. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm gonna swap. And this is like its full animation endpoint. This is its default endpoint. And let me do this so it doesn't get too confusing. So as you can see, it's pushing in, it's going, and we're going, and it's gonna keep pushing. Let it do its thing. And that was that. But let's say you wanted it to go, let's say you like that, but you wanted to do that faster. I could do this. And it's still pushing in. It's just going a little bit faster. Get there even faster. See? So that's kind of how, like, if you do this, you're controlling the speed at which it gets to where you want it to get to. There's probably better ways of doing that. I wouldn't necessarily suggest it this way, but you could do that. You could totally do that. And now you don't have to really think about it. You have the default. But you're like, I like that, but I want to have a little bit more control. And I want it to zoom in further. So basically, however long you want the zoom to last, that's how long I would zoom. That's how long I would drag the adjustment clip out for. But let's say you're like, no, I want it to zoom in faster and closer, but it needs to be this long. Then I would go in. I just zoom in a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And let's just say you wanted to push into a close-up on his face. And then, let's see if that did it. Hold on, let me reset, go back to fit. Let's see if that. All right, let me just push that in a little bit more. I can kind of do the same thing I did before. It's weird how this works. But let's push it a little bit more. Let's see if that, that went too much. Pull it back down, let's see. Okay, I think that'll do it. Okay. So I wanted it to last on that whole thing, and then you see like it's also pushing in and going up because we're framing in for his face. Again, do whatever this is not a right or wrong. You can do it however you want to do it. And let's say you're like, nah, I want to really, really, really get in there. So I could kind of like reframe that even more, and I kind of saw where I was at, so I just play with it. Let's see where we're at now. But nah, I still want it. But now you're like, okay, now I'm over too much because I overcompensated it for a little bit too much. You just kind of slide it back over, come back out. There's a lot of back and forth there. Go back in. Make sure that fits. a little bit more. Get his head in there. And you just kind of finesse it and play with it. So I will say that it's easier to have more control over what the zoom is doing with. So if you wanted to do the zoom how I'm doing, you can totally do it this way. But this might be a situation where it could be better to use the first method I showed you because it's a little easier to have more control. But here's the motion now. We're playing it through, and this is what it's doing. Now, I like how the camera, how it does it, because it does feel like it's a camera move. So you can kind of compare and contrast. Let's say I wanted to do the same thing here with this one. Oop. I mean, there's things you can do too. I can kind of go in and finesse it some more. I can go in and finesse it a little bit more to really make it do what I wanted to do. And I can pull up, let me just show you. You can like feather out the motion, but this is what I meant by it being a little bit easier to control exactly what you want the clip to do. And I can also do it this way too. Go to transform, drag it. Let's say you want to just, I just confused myself. Hold on. Let's go back. Let's just say you want to do it like that. I just want to really punch in on them. So I can set it exactly how I want it to be. Obviously, I would not do this, but you never know what you're doing and what you need and what your needs are for your video. So I can't say that this is right or wrong. This might be perfect for you and what you're trying to do. So that's the end point. So we go there, set it like we did before, go back to the beginning, and there you go. And it's doing it. So there we go. And I might wanted to stop, so I could set the stop point. I could have stopped it sooner, control that. So you just have to kind of be aware of what you're doing with that. I'm gonna show you one more way you can do this. And again, I just like doing adjustment clips because this is actually a good way to create transitions and things. If you wanted to have like quick zoom ins for more like cooler effects and not something more cinematic or smooth, what you would do, come over to effects, type in the transform. No, it's not in there. It's in open effects. Yeah, you would come over to open effects, type transform. It's pulling up. Grab it, drop it into your adjustment clip. You can also just drop this directly on your clip. I just like to set it up so that way I can reuse that clip, that same animation throughout without having to redo it every time. That's why I use adjustment clips. But the reason why I say to use a transform, if you want to do a faster zoom, is because, I mean, you can even do this if you're doing the slower zoom like I did, but you can control motion blur. So let me come over, where is it? Advanced options. Okay, here we go, animation. So yeah, motion blur. So you can control how intense you want your motion blur to be, but I'm just gonna do a quick little push in. So let's just say I want this push in to be like 5 frames. I don't want it to be that long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clicks. So this is gonna be like a quick like zoom in on something. And this would be a cool way to do a transition because you could just zoom in and zoom out. We're just gonna give it like a quick push. But we want it to look like it's like motion blur, like it's actually a camera doing it. Having motion blur just kind of is a good thing to have when you're doing videos. Just gives things a little bit more, what's the word? I guess organic feel to it. It doesn't feel so sharp and crisp, or it doesn't feel so mechanical. I guess is another word you can use. So very similar to what we were doing before. You have different options, canvas, pins, and things like that, but I'm going to do it with sliders. I just prefer using the sliders. So again, same type of thing like we did before. I'm going to set where I want the endpoint to be. First, I messed that up. We need to zoom because X and Y is a little bit different now. I mean, it's different because position's first, but you want to go to zoom, and we're just going to zoom in right about, let's just zoom in close, because it'll be like that'll be like kind of a cool effect to have in the music video, like a quick push in, if you want to have some cool like camera animation and things like that. So I'm gonna set that to the end. And then we're gonna go back to the beginning and do the same thing I showed you before, double clicking. And this is what that looks like. So the only thing I thought about, well, no, that's fine. I'll just leave it. So they'll do that. Boom. So it's kind of cool. Like, oh, that was kind of cool. Let me pull some of this back so you can see a little bit better what's happening. We're gonna go to half. Doesn't look as crappy. So you see that little, I was like, oh, that was cool. You know, you can see that in the music video. Cool little punch-ins and stuff like that, which is fine. But there's no motion blur. It's like all very static in sense of like, I'm starting here, I'm going here, and it's pretty mechanical. There's no blur. And usually, you know, you move your hand like this and you're looking at it, you're seeing motion. So, you know, it's not like it's as crisp. Oh, how I'm looking at it right now, I'm seeing every finger, everything's super smooth, go from here to here. But when you do it fast, there's some type of quick motion. So it's like motion, it's creating motion blur, which, you know, it just helps things to feel more natural, more organic in your brain. You know, it just feels better. That's just the best way I know how to say it. It just feels better. And it's not as amateur looking. So you click on animation. Let's just crank the motion blur extreme. You can already see what it's doing. So the problem with this, which is actually, no, it's not a problem because it knows, the program knows to cut it. So you don't have to, you could do this a different way. But if you use the transform tool, the program actually knows to stop the motion. It's not going to stay blurry, so I'm trying to get at. You don't have to animate the blur, which is a cool thing. But you can see the lights, everything's like super extreme. So let's go back and watch it again. That just felt so much better. You're just like, oh, that felt crispy. I ain't gonna lie, that felt mad crispy. It's not crispy because we added blur to it, but it feels crispy, if you know what I mean. So, I'm about to use that in the video now. But like for music videos, man, that stuff will look mad dope. We're gonna go back to animation. I'm gonna take the motion blur back off, and you see that, I mean, that difference. The blur's there. So we're gonna play it. You know, it's cool, but it's just something about that, having that, add a nice sound effect on that. That's that movie making magic, you know, the stuff that just, what's the word I think I'm looking for, is it just settles you into it. It just makes it believable. It sells it, you know, it just makes it more immersive and makes it believable. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them down below in the comment section. Leave a like if you liked the video, and be sure to subscribe for even more tips and tricks like this. Until next time, peace.